Oh, you have returned for another story, haven't you? Well, you're speaking to none other than old Man Jenkins, and I got some great stories for you all. Lastly, we talked about the strange coin incident and how he was friended with a certain hunter. This time, why not go back in time to one of the greatest legends of them all? We're talking the scale of Saint 14 in terms of legend. We're talking about someone that might live in mysteries to you new guardians that you might not even heard of. But most certainly, older guardians know the tale, or even the myth, or the legend. Who knows what to call it even? But just relax, just sit down, and be patient as I, Old Man Jenkins, will tell you about the legend of none other than Jolt the Shattered. Ah, Jolt, where do we even begin? He is a guardian and a true legend ever since the beginning, and he will remain a legend forever. But why not begin at the point where it all started? Let's go back long before the Golden Age. The year was 2051, and a brand new technology was revealed. Engineered sleeping pods for people was introduced by the company known as FTI, if I remember correctly. They were looking for people to participate in their latest work. One of the test subjects was a simple person called Marcus. He was fascinated by science and technology, and he thought it could be a cool thing to be someone interesting for once. You see, he lived quite a boring life, and actually a sad life as well, but that's a long forgotten at this point anyway. Marcus signed the paperwork and was now renamed Test Subject JO-L.T13. The technology worked incredibly well. In fact, Marcus and the other test subjects slept for around 700 years. They missed so much stuff that happened to the world. The Golden Age, the collapse, everything. But eventually, Marcus woke up by an unusual source. A fallen light ghost had apparently carried him from the facility while in the pod, away from a horrible incident that occurred. Marcus, in quite a horrific and confused state at this point, didn't know what to do. The fallen light ghost started to speak English with him. The fallen ghost was called Cricus and was reprogrammed by a surviving engineer that had died recently during the incident. Cricus had been instructed to wake up the sleeping pods to recruit more people to join the battle against the fallen. To make it simple for Cricus, Marcus wanted to be called Jolt after his test subject name, and that's where he got the name from. What's really sad is that Jolt was actually the only one from the sleeping pods that managed to survive. Yes, he is the last survivor of an extremely ancient technology. They started their journey in Sweden, homeland of Jolt, where the Fallen had complete control over. Realizing that they couldn't stand there forever, Cricus and Jolt planned out a journey to a big city beneath the traveler that Cricus had been snapping out throughout his listening to the Fallen comms. That's where they were going to. Throughout their journey, they met horrifying and dangerous Fallen scums. But none was so dangerous as the captain known as Skarvinx, a big, very big captain indeed. Skarvinx was one of the most brutal enemies Jolt had ever faced. At one point, the captain ripped off a part of Jolt's left arm, which led to Jolt building a bionic arm, rather. Skarvinx was not from a familiar house, you see. He was no wolf, no king, but rather from a very unknown house, known as the House of Destroyers. Supposedly the most feared out of all fallen houses. During this journey, Jolt went with a sort of, if you ever heard of the movie called Mad Max? Yeah, he went with that sort of style. Heavy loaded, no mercy for any enemy or fallen for that particular reason, and a destiny set. Jolt was determined to reach the lost city in order to survive. Later on, they would face Skarvinx again, and this time he was prepared with an enormous skiff, pursuing Jolt and Cricus. They blasted off a huge bolt of energy, and boom, the car that was previously used was destroyed. Now Jolt and Cricus was out in the desert wasteland of old Russia, and they were struggling to stay alive. But they found a junkyard where the Fallen had left some pikes, actually. Cricus taught a quick little tutorial for Jolt on how to drive, and so they blasted off. But of course, Jolt having that certain distinct of smelling blood of his enemies, he just had to drive by one of the garages that the Fallen had and just blast off some rounds before leaving further. Later on, they stumbled upon a huge wall near old Russia, but it was so far away. They were close though, he could feel it. Jolt was still determined. But then, out of nowhere, they met up with Skarvinx a final time, and this battle did not end well for Jolt. Jolt was so heavily broken that Cricus had to rebuild Jolt as an exo in a secret, or rather obscure sort of house or bunker. It's pretty unclear if my memory is sort of fading away. When Jolt was finished, either way, he was picked up by Cricus and they were set to fly to the lost city, but the ghost was shut down by Skarvinx. Cricus crashed into the hard ground near the Cosmodrome and put Jolt into the very cold and snowy environment before fading away. Jolt, still desperate enough in order to get to the lost city, he, for the first time, just couldn't. So he went to a safe location to rest in the very cold snow, only to fall and fade. But this is also the place where the ghost from the Traveler one day would find Jolt, and that's where he was reborn. When Jolt woke up, he didn't have any memories of what had happened to him, No memories of the Skarvinx incident or whatever happened to him. But it didn't matter, because Jolt was only looking forward, and he went to become a great hunter in the future. He was so good that he even got to design his own exotic based around his obsession for Tex Mechanica. So Jolt designed a hand cannon of ultimate power, called the Spinner, an exotic hand cannon that could switch between a first curse archetype to a lost word archetype just by spinning it. With a slogan written on the side of "Your turn, you missed. My turn, I spin, I win," and it was going to be known in myths as Tex Mechanica only produced one of those guns, and Jolt was the only owner of it. Being a hunter, Jolt learned the perfect shots of the gunslingers, the sharpened blades of the blade dancers, and in the events of the Taken King, he learned to walk lonely in the void to become a young Night Stalker. Before the events of Crota, one day Jolt was inspecting the vault of glass for research purposes, when suddenly he was attacked by a broken and quite malfunctioning Minotaur. The Minotaur broke off one of Jolt's arms and legs and put him into a shutdown. When he woke up again, he was with a non-lethal harpy. Jolt didn't understand what had happened until he looked at his leg and saw that it was Vex-themed. Jolt didn't understand why, but apparently the Vex modifications on him made him be able to speak to the harpies. And that's what led Jolt to be the leader for the first fire team to enter the Vault of Glass later on. Jolt asked the harpy many questions, and the harpy responded. He asked about who Atheon was, how to defeat him, and what to expect from the vault. The harpy answered all the questions, and even teach Jolt on how to go through the entire thing. It was almost like either the harpy had planned it, or like it was malfunctioning or something. Why would the enemy reveal something like this? Jolt thought. But nonetheless, Jolt went back to the tower and put out a message to assemble a great fire team. Together, they went into the vault and to seek out its champions. But as Jolt feared, it was a trap. The battleground shifted them and everything into a separate reality. A different time, you might as well say. The theory about the Vex trying to find a guardian that they could build their nasty attack on and manipulate it to getting other guardians and trapping them in time was actually true. But Jolt didn't freak out. Instead, he told the others to be unpredictable and do the thing that they normally wouldn't. With this strategy, the fire team killed both the Templar and finally the Time's Conflux himself, Atheon. The fire team was treated like heroes, and after the raid, Jolt started to become the famous legend that we have today to remember. But from this great victory came horrible stuffs. One day, Jolt got a call from the Exo-Stranger. She wanted to discuss how Jolt needed to be really careful with the Vex technology that he had in him.
Despite the fact that you were able to control your Vex arm and leg during your raid, doesn't mean that you will have full control over it forever. You're now forever tied to a Vex mind, you see. It will try to manipulate you, control you, and even stop you from killing Vex. But you must stay strong and never let it happen. You will start to see things that doesn't really make any sense. You will see pasts and futures yet to be created that you have no recognition of. Use this to your advantage. The Vex will give you clues of what's yet to come. You must solve its puzzles. You must never let anyone know what happened. You need to cover your arm and leg and let no one ever see it. If someone were to see it, you know what would happen. You will no longer be a guardian in their eyes, Jolt. You will be their enemy, and you would be hunted down.
Jolt swore an oath and would follow the stranger's word. Ever since the Vex power was added into him, Jolt had trouble living throughout the days and even sleeping problems. He was having seizures and glitches in him. He became sort of twitchy, like a malfunctioning droid. He started to have flashbacks and even predictions of the future that has yet to happen, but he had no recognition of it. Jolt really felt like he was seeing 2 times at once, and all of this information made him crazy. It didn't make any sense. Just like the exo-stranger said, he would see things that he didn't have any knowledge of. But what did he really see? He really wanted to tell someone about his glimpses into what might have happened in the future, or what could have been redone in the past. But he thought as well, if I were to tell someone about it, I would ruin my reputation, and people would probably think that I'm crazy, or they would most likely hunt me down. Jolt couldn't stand his manners. He needed to work out a plan to make him more normal again. But what about the things you saw, you might ask? It's still a mystery. So, Jolt started with a plan to make a new exo body. At this point, he actually knew about the programs and how you could transfer a mind to different exos. And what better way, Jolt thinked, to make a new body than to go into the war mind and figure out the codes and different installation softwares for the new body. So that's what he did. He went deep within the Cosmodrome war mind and dug up a lot of files to use for a new body. After finding the right results that Jolt was looking for, and everything seemed to fall into places, Jolt went back into the main bunker hole and booted up the process. The program worked really well, and now it was about time to go for an upgrade. So Jolt went into the chamber. Everything faded to white, and then Jolt walked up the stairs from the chamber, reborn as a new and improved exo. But what was most dramatic about this is that he was no longer a hunter, but rather a new being. He was a warlock. Right before he was about to leave, he got a message from someone. Quite odd indeed. He was getting a message from none other than Rasputin, the Warmind himself, and now Jolt was in secret the true protector of the Warminds. Jolt returned to the speaker and told him about how he had created a new body, and also asked for a permission by Ikora herself to become a warlock. Seeing how trustworthy and loyal Jolt was as a vanguard, Ikora happily gave Jolt the permission to become a warlock. Being a warlock, Jolt taught himself the life of a phoenix to become a sun singer, to draw powers out of the void to become a void walker, and in the future to bond himself with the rawest of all powers to become a stormcaller. Around the time of House of Wolves, and after I've killed Crota, Jolt was getting an idea again to try to become human again. He wanted to be able to feel everything around him and the things that he touched, and also he wanted to live more of a normal life, if you would. After all, 700 years into the future, there had to be a way to create an authentic human body, wouldn't it? So he went back into the war mine to do some research about how you could produce a real human body. To no surprise, no program or file was found with the data that he required. However, he did find a secret project by a Professor Vladimir. The document contained the process of making a lab-made and authentic skin suit that could be mounted on top an exo. Jolt was not so happy with his found, but he didn't give up on finding a way to become a human again. Rasputin actually informed Jolt about the secret location of Mercury. There apparently lied the technology there that the humanity has never seen before. All he needed was a dead corpse to experiment with. A dead corpse? Really? Isn't that a little bit morbid? I mean, first of all, I don't know where the body comes from, unless I find it myself. And second, do I really want to live in someone else's body? I mean, it's not any use to whoever was in it, so I guess Jolt thought. But what could the perfect place be to find bodies just laying around in perfect place or in perfect shape as well? Well, the reef, of course. So Jolt went to the reef to find a body just floating around that maybe he could use. Luckily, he found one in pretty good shape as well. He took the body to the secret war mine location on Mercury. There, he experimented around with the body and came up with his final solution: to build a processing chip and hook it up to the brain, in which he could transfer his consciousness into. He asked Rasputin for some help, and he was instructed to do what Rasputin told him to do. Jolt was looking around for the different details that Rasputin put out, and so they began. Jolt pressed some buttons here and there, and he coded in the different things, and Rasputin helped. Was this actually going to be it? Was this transferring going to be just as successful as the previous one? Well, it was quite ambitious for Jolt. He gave the rehab container some extra powers by using his Stormcaller ability. He wanted to make sure that the rehab container was at 100% or more. He didn't want this to fail. He was most certain that he was so close to reaching his dream. So he went into the container, it faded to white, and soon enough he was back out. He had no idea of what had happened, until he looked down at his legs and saw that, indeed, he was in his new body. Jolt was human again. At this point he enjoyed every single second of being able to feel the hot air on Mercury, to be able to smell the quite crispy and metallic air as well. And that new jump ability, he was just having a blast. Jolt was extremely happy with the result. Being a Titan, Jolt learned how to be like a wall and become a defender. He learned how to draw the entire lightning storm into his fist to become a striker, and in the future he would forge a hammer made out of solar energy to become a sunbreaker. If you were curious about if Jolt ever switched back and forth between his different bodies, then yes, fret not. He built a supercomputer that was capable of making him be able to switch between the different bodies, and he also has safe containers to all of them. He eventually also got back his memories and started a hunt for that captain, Skarvinx, again. The weirdest part is that no one else seemed to know about this House of Destroyers more than Jolt. It's almost like it was an imagination, but the scariest part is that Jolt actually has a recording of Skarvinx. I want you to take a listen and see for yourself. But Jolt sent out his own message to Skarvinx. And Jolt can still talk to the Vex, but not in a friendly way, of course. Jolt is also tied to a Vex mine and Rasputin. You can probably see why he's kind of a legend, don't you? After all of this has happened, we come to the events of the Taken King, when Oryx parked his massive dreadnought near the Saturn. And we also come to the events of Strange Coin, with Sao and Ektar being slaughtered by Jolt, as well as Strange Coin being killed by Jolt. And finally, Oryx himself. Jolt has been every class and mastered them fully. As a Titan, he has been the Defender, the Sentinel, the Sunbreaker, and the Striker. As the glorious warlock, he mastered his way through Sunsinger abilities and the Dawnblade. He's been casting magnificent and giant Nova bombs as a Voidwalker. He's been cast with the strongest of all lightning storms as a Stormcaller. As a hunter, he mastered the arts of Arcblade and the Arcstriders. He's been using Tether for ages, and is one of his favorite supers to use ever. He has learned the ways of the gunslingers, firing up to 6 shots even. He truly is a legend. We have seen Jolt done some incredible things throughout the ages, being the one who drove back the darkness in the Black Garden. And destroying the heart of Vex. He has killed Crota, son of Oryx. He helped the Queen, Petra, and Varix on their hunt for Skolas. He killed the Taken King. He single-handedly defeated the Siva Swarms and the Iron Lords, and he was also granted the mantle of being a lord by Saladin himself 3 whole times. He has been taken. He has been a Queen's Guard for the Reef, and has also been one of the very few Guardians that a certain Emperor Callus was impressed by. Yes, it seems like Jolt can do everything. He thinks ill of all the enemies. He has no trust in anything that isn't human. Seeing how he was almost led down to the path of killing 5 other Guardians in the process of believing in the Harpies. Jolt has his reasons. But even though Jolt is a hero, he is still a bit twitchy, and a lot of time he can be quite dumb. But Jolt is one you always want to have near you. He is filled with love and care, and are one of the nicest Guardians ever. Did I mention he's great in raids?